Welcome to Startup Spokane, where hosts Steve Traben and Megan Halsey explore the excitement and momentum growing throughout Spokane's expanding startup community. Startup Spokane is a joint effort between Greater Spokane Incorporated's Startup Spokane, our friends at Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Talks Online. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Megan.
Welcome to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media. We're your podcast home for everything entrepreneurship related in the Spokane region. We're a program of Greater Spokane Incorporated, and so whether you have an idea or you're launching or growing your business, we want to provide you with the resources you need so that you can be wildly successful. So without further ado, Megan, let's introduce today's guest and get this conversation rolling.
Yeah, we're really excited today to have Chris Hoke. Chris and his wife have founded a company called Tough Rooster. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
You bet. I'm a local guy. Been here basically since kindergarten. Graduated from Shadle Park and went on to Spokane Falls and spent 7 years getting my 2-year degree, putting myself through it, which actually has come in handy later in life from marketing and a business perspective that I wouldn't have envisioned. And I'm pretty active in the community. I work with the Small Business Association and the SCORE program as a business mentor, and got a wife and 2 teenage daughters here, and they help out with our business and do some coaching, a lot of outdoor stuff, and involved with government relations through eBay. So I got a lot of irons in the fire.
That's
Fantastic.
great. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Tough Rooster.
Yeah, you bet. Tough Rooster is an online commerce, kind of an out-of-your-house business that turned into out-of-our-shop business, out of our 20-acre business, that we sell about 300 SKUs across various platforms, large platforms, and our own website as well, that we take care of a good majority of it right out of the Spokane area.
Yeah, and when you say SKUs, so that's like individual products or items, right?
Correct.
So
yeah, some of which are our own proprietary lines, some of which are patented, and some are resold, and some are kind of old school eBay. Walk into a thrift store and spend $20 and make $200. So we've got all kinds of things going on. That was our roots of how we started.
So let's talk about some of the proprietary products that you guys have developed. Where did you get started, and what prompted you to do it?
Great question. It's kind of an eBay accident. I actually was training and competing in Ironman for a number of years, and it's an expensive sport. And I started selling my stuff on eBay to upgrade my equipment, and then my wife got involved in the sport, and I'm selling a lot of stuff on eBay, and I'm starting to figure this out. And we had an espresso machine in the kitchen that had this little light that came on once a month and said, "Clean me." And their tablets, for 8 tablets, was $35, and a light bulb went off. Like, there's no market for generics. And we actually spent a bunch of time getting licensed and figuring out how to get into that market and create that market, and we did. And we were the only ones out there for a long time, and then we started into Keurig and all kinds of other things. And when you were the only ones out there, there's pretty good margin in it. So it was a pretty cool and fun thing. It's real competitive now. It's not an easy thing to get into, but we still exist in that platform as pretty much the top dog.
Yeah, so before we get into the big marketplace platforms and whatnot, let's talk a little bit about, like, what was the process for developing your own product for, you say, cleaning coffee machines? And just, I mean, we can keep it the short version probably.
Yeah,
but
a lot of research, a lot of phone calls, a lot of teamwork. I mean, a lot of what I talk about, getting on platforms, learning about your products, it's teamwork. I worked with the SCORE down at the Small Business Association. There's SCORE mentors. I've used them throughout the years for different things when you're developing a product. Basically, even eBay itself, when you're coming to it with a product, you can call their 800 number and anytime you want, and physically talk to somebody across the phone and walk through what you can and can't do. It's not as hard as one thinks. And obviously there's a lot more to it after that, but to actually developing the product itself, it wasn't all that hard. It took a lot of time.
Yeah.
It was easier back then. 11 years ago was still the golden age of eBay and Amazon, where anybody could just jump right in. There wasn't as many rules, or wasn't as much big business in there. Margins were still pretty strong. They're pretty slim right now. It's a different ball game, but it's still a good game to play.
So how big is Tough Rooster now? How many employees do you employ?
Good question. We have, I mentioned the 300 plus SKUs. We sell about 20,000 individual orders a year. all across the United States and abroad. I think about 13% of our sales are international. We're inside Amazon UK, which actually serves the EU, and Amazon Canada, and looking at a few other markets that we're getting into too. So I think we're not going to crack $1 million in sales this year. Easily next year we will. We've gotten real aggressive on growth the last 2 years. It's kind of we kind of push, and then we figure out all the growing pains, and then we push again, and we're in the middle of another push. So we're growing. It's mostly family running it. My wife and kids and some other high school kids that work for us at times to help fulfill. And we have partners in, believe it or not, Germany, one in Georgia, Coeur d'Alene, and China as well.
Wow.
So it takes an army to pull this off
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, and I when I was learning about you and Tough Rooster, it looks like you sell across multiple platforms, including your own website. So so some of this is your self-fulfilling orders?
Correct.
Or
great question.
Yeah, talk about how that works.
This evolution, basically the last 12 years went from 100% self-fulfillment to, in today's world, if somebody goes online to purchase something, 62% of online consumers go to Amazon first.
Sure.
And if they're going to Amazon first, most of them, speed is number one, so they're going for Prime.
Right.
And so if they're going for Prime, you have to be in their fulfillment centers. So if you have to be in their fulfillment centers, you're taking your goods, you're spreading them throughout the fulfillment centers in the United States for them to fulfill your orders. So
Right.
12 years ago, it wasn't as big of a thing at all. And now it's everything. So we still fulfill a certain amount of orders. We're on jet.com, our own websites, eBay, Amazon, we're all over the place actually. But an overwhelming majority of our sales come fulfilled by Amazon.
Yeah, and that allows you probably to have lower overhead, in terms of labor and whatnot, right?
You're absolutely correct. So our push is to fill cases and get them into Amazon. That's our push.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we still have to fulfill our orders every day. I mean, it's all about speed. You can't wait 3 days anymore to get your orders out. Everybody wants it out and in the mail stream that day. That's the expectation of the consumer.
Oh, for orders that you're self-fulfilling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody that buys anything anymore, doesn't matter what demographic you're in, you expect your stuff to get out, and that's our obligation to get it out that day. But it is nice having those fulfillment centers, because if some guy in New York needs one of my products, he can order it that morning, and in major markets you get it that day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
If I were fulfilling it, the soonest he could get it was 3 to 4 days.
Great.
So.
And so how difficult is it for you to keep up with the inventory that you need to then supply to the fulfillment centers?
Supply chain.
Talk about the supply chain.
How difficult is it? There's a lot of variables. Are things running right? I just had an issue last year with one of the companies that supplies our cases. They just changed things over. They didn't tell me. Stuff wasn't shipped. I'm freaking out trying to come with alternative ways to get our cases. It's not difficult if you're organized and you're on top of it. It's one of the things you got to do, but one of the benefits of not having brick and mortar and a bunch of employees is you can stay on top of things like
Right.
that. It really, my wife actually is the nuts and bolts of what's going on around there. She does a great job. She's not real big on speaking, so I get to do most of it. But she does a good job of staying on top of it and making sure we have what we need, because fulfillment is everything. You got to have your goods. And a lot of it comes in from Germany, comes in from China, and a lot of it's local.
Yep.
So we got a lot of moving parts.
And it's complicated by the fact that you have 300 SKUs.
Correct.
Right? So
Yeah.
if you were dealing with a handful of products, it's probably easier to manage than when you're dealing with 300 different unique products.
It's
right?
good and bad.
Yeah.
Diversity is great, because when something goes cold, you can throw, heat up another iron. But when you have that many irons, you're doing a lot of this. But it's all part of how we've learned and where we're at and what we're focusing on each year for an initiative.
I want to talk a little bit about how things have changed since you dove into the e-commerce world, in terms of like collecting taxes and the government regulation side of things. How does that affect you?
It affects you greatly. It almost kept us out of it. In 2011, I believe it was 2011, they passed, any income over $19,900 on PayPal, they send you a 1099, you have to report as a business. Up until then, it's kind of a hobby, because really, if you're selling stuff around your house, you're selling your bike, you're selling, used jeans, whatever, the government doesn't really want you to say, I sold my $4,000 bike for $2,000. I want my loss of so they
Right.
kind of, there's some gray area there. But once you get over 20 grand, You're reporting, you're a business, this is different. So that's a pain point for getting into this originally. So over time, once we decided we're all in, we're going to blow through the 20 grand, and the next year we did 100,000, and
now
we're
you're
not
a real business, right? You've got all the reporting requirements.
It has changed a lot. It's changed a lot since this summer when they overturned basically Quill versus North Dakota, which was the 1992 decision on internet sales tax.
Yeah.
It's going to change. It's going to change fast. I was on the Hill for 2 years in a row, and then the White House on Small Business Week addressing this very subject. And it's coming. It's going to be here. The biggest problem is they can't exactly figure out how to apply it and then regulate it.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
6,600 tax jurisdictions in this country.
Yeah. Wow, incredible.
How do you collect and remit for that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Very
Balance it.
and very complicated.
Yeah, it's very.
But at least you're anticipating it, right, as a
Right.
business.
Yes.
And I want to spend more time talking about the changes. You just mentioned kind of the regulatory side. The changes just in working with an organization, a large marketing platform like Amazon. I mean, that's changed a lot in your history
Yeah.
as well, right? I can see.
Yes.
So
it's-
just maybe just a couple of nuggets, before we go to break on some of the big changes you've seen there.
Absolutely. This is a big subject. Everyone we run into, well, my wife wants to sell this on Amazon. We've got caramel. We want to sell that on Amazon. Well,
Yeah.
who doesn't, right? My wife, she taught school. She loved it. But this came up, and she doesn't teach school anymore, and she's headed down this road. And you pretty much need to sell on Amazon successfully, you pretty much need to be full-time Amazon, staying on top of the platform, staying on top mining for keywords, staying on top of your marketing, all these types of things. It is huge. It's so complicated. It's so difficult. The golden years of just throwing stuff on and selling it, they're really over. You have to have an expert base. Well, I use an expert now. I don't even do it.
Good.
Yeah.
I partnered with a guy. We teamed up, PGP, Prime Growth Partners in Coeur d'Alene. Shane's great. His fees are reasonable, and it's off my. We
Yeah.
concentrate on product. We concentrate on getting stuff out. We concentrate on supply chain. He does his job.
That's great.
I can't do it anymore. It's just too
Yeah,
complicated.
so finding partners and partnership
Yes.
opportunities in this is really important. We're having a great conversation with Chris Hoke with Tough Rooster. Stay with us on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media. We'll be right back.
I'm Spokane firefighter Randy Marler, and I trust Jeff Holy to know what Spokane's public safety needs are.
The leaders we trust to protect us trust Jeff Holy. Jeff Holy is a retired Spokane police officer. We need a leader who understands public safety, and that's why I support Jeff Holy for state senator.
Hi, I'm Spokane Valley Deputy Mayor Pam Haley, and I trust Jeff Holy to continue doing what's best for our local communities.
Paid for by Jeff Holy for Senate, Republican.
They say it takes a community to raise a family. It also takes one to build a business. I came to Spokane 12 years ago as a Whitworth student, and I planned to leave after graduation. But the more I got to know this community, the more I wanted to become a part of it. My husband and I have built our business in Spokane, and now we're raising our family here too. We operate a consulting company that provides creative business development strategies. Our approach is holistic and dependent on intentional connections and relationships. And no one understands connections and relationships better than GSI. They direct momentum towards investments in our community, provide resources that help business leaders connect, and they're dedicated and passionate about making Spokane great. GSI gives me the confidence to build my business here because they believe every organization, even a small one like mine, adds big value to our community. With GSI's help, Spokane will be a place my son will want to build his career too. I'm Eva Marquette, owner of Freshview. We're creating something greater with Greater Spokane Incorporated.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
What? You haven't been to the library lately? Stop in today and see that the library is more than books. Spokane County Library District facilities feature on-site technology, including Wi-Fi, computers, and printers, as well as free use of meeting rooms. The Library District offers events and programs for all ages, from story times to career development and employer classes to Social Security workshops. Our staff is well trained and happy to help. Find out more about your library at scld.org.
Welcome back to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media. We're talking to a local entrepreneur, Chris Hoke, about his company Tough Rooster. And one of the things we left off on before we went to break was the new changing aspects of marketing your product and getting your sales on those large platforms like Amazon, Jet. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, this is a can of worms, and it really is, and it changes monthly.
Yeah.
You know, what we were doing 6 months ago or a year ago is seriously almost 180 degrees, you know, to the previous year and where we're at now. And that's why it's so important to be on top of it and partner with people that know what they're doing, so you can do, you know, that's my opinion, to stay on top of your own products, your own pipeline, and work with them to figure out what you're doing, because changes. The algorithms that Amazon uses, they change those. How they charge for stock in their inventory and fulfillment centers, that changes. How your ad spend, that changes. They get bid up, they get bid down, depending on what kind of product you have. I mean, if you would have told me 3 years ago that I was going to be spending $5,000 a month in advertising on Amazon, I would say absolutely not. Right. I'm done. But now that I see the sales that we're getting, the returns after we spend a bunch of time and money mining for keywords and figuring things out, I'll spend 10 grand a month if I can, sure, because I know what that turns into for conversions. So it's a thing. It's complicated.
Yeah, and are you testing all the time? Is that kind of, I mean, testing that system? You know, absolutely. I'm gonna pay 20 cents an ad today and see what kind of results I get, and maybe, you know, they make recommendations, right? They say, here's what we recommend you spend, and you can have flexibility to do whatever you want. So I imagine there's a lot of testing and all that.
Absolutely. A lot of A/B tests. There's different tools you can purchase and use to give you more information, and then you can combine the data you get from those tools to come to your own conclusion and head down this way, head down this way.
Right.
And that's why I use somebody. The guy I'm working with in his company, they're outstanding. Yeah. They always have the right answers. They say, hey, you know, we're going to take for 2 months. You're pretty much not going to make money if we do this, but we're going to get some golden keywords out of this, and you better be ready for November, because it's going to go crazy, and that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, so you're building this foundation of keywords. Probably customer feedback's important. Buyer feedback. Maybe we should talk about that.
I love it and I hate it. I love it because it's we as consumers win. You know, you can't get away. There's no such thing as a bad product you can sell cheap enough. I love to say that, because you used to be nobody, like 10 years ago when you'd order something that just came from China and the plastic's flimsy and you're like, this isn't going to work, this is garbage. There didn't used to be a way to protect us from that. Reviews protect you from that now.
Yeah.
As a seller, you better make sure you got your product figured out, your R&D's done, you've done all your research and development, you feel comfortable about it before you send it out there, because your first 10 customers will kill you. And then you also, when you introduce that product, you know, I believe you better be ready to lose money and give it away at a good value to start building some reviews, so customers are like, hey, I paid $8 for this $30 thing, this is great, and they start building up your reviews.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of people come into this thinking, I spent $15 a piece for these, I'm going to sell them all for $30 a piece, and then I'm going to take the money I made and get, you know, that's not a realistic business plan in today's world.
Yeah, so this is a skinny margin business, right? It's got to be.
Anymore, yeah.
I mean, if you're paying that kind of money for marketing and ad spend and all of that, so it's a volume game, it sounds like?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, there's still a few out there that are that have figured out a product or two, or you know, they found a window that you're going to make some money on something for a while. Yeah. But realistically, absolutely, your margins get driven down so fast that you just pretty much got to have other irons in the fire.
So where you have products that you're self-fulfilling, like through your website, are those same products? Are you competing sales on the big platforms, or do you kind of keep those just on your own so that you're not like undercutting yourself when you sell on Amazon or Jet or
It's a
eBay?
great question. I have found that a lot of consumers outside of that 62% are loyal to their platform they've used their whole life.
Yeah.
Or a whole life, for a long time.
Sure.
eBay's a great one. I mean, there's eBay people, there's Amazon people. I mean, I know people are like, I don't never buy anything on eBay. I thought that's just like garage sale stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's actually a lot of good stuff on eBay. You know, we're in the middle of rebuilding or building a new shop and house to kind of do a better job be more conducive for what we're doing, and we're filling it mostly off eBay. There's a lot of stuff on there that I can get cheaper than Amazon and locally or stuff we're looking for that I can't get anywhere else. So it's important, I believe, if your product fits in an Etsy or an eBay, absolutely put it on there. And it might be an opportunity for stronger margins if there's less competition.
Right.
So it's important if your product fits to get it on as many platforms as makes sense.
Well, and it sounds like if you want to try to get out on Amazon, especially in a commoditized product where you have a lot of competitors, you have to have a significant amount of investment in inventory.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah, you do. It's all part of the game. You got to figure it out. And to back up to on my last point, I meant to say this too, is that wise consumers know you can still go on eBay and not pay sales tax. So anything you buy on Amazon pretty much has sales tax because they have a nexus in every state, therefore they have to collect. You can go on eBay and buy this. If it's a $200 item on Amazon or a $500 on Amazon, you're going to pay 9% in Washington.
Right.
You don't pay the 9% if you go on eBay if you're willing to wait.
And so the consumers are getting smart to that, at least for now, until the regulations change.
Well, at least our consumers are now.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's not me saying go around anything. It's the rules. And so if you're going to spend $1,000, would you rather spend $1,090 or would you rather spend $1,000?
Yeah.
So there's educated consumers that if you can make sure you're on all these other platforms, it just gives you more of an opportunity for increased sales.
Chris, I want to sneak in a quick conversation on how have you and your wife funded Tough Rooster?
We're lucky because we lucked into this, and we built up through our triathlon goods, and we started Goodwillin', and then we started doing a couple other things, and we're like, wow, I can walk into Goodwill and spend $15, walk out and sell this stuff for $300.
Gotcha.
And so we were kind of doing it on the side, and like I said, eventually she just quit teaching and took this thing over, and we grew revenues from almost $20,000 a month to $200,000 a month. And if you're paying 25 cents for a pair of jeans and you're selling them for 20 and you're doing $200,000 worth of that a year, there's money in it.
Good.
But it's a job.
Right. So you work hard, but this is really you've bootstrapped. I mean, you haven't had to go raise money or take loans.
No, not to this point.
The revenues are growing, and it just
Exactly.
reinvest them back into the business.
Yeah,
that's great.
And you can get funding. You can work with the SBA. There's all kinds of things. SCORE. There's a lot of opportunity out there for people who aren't self-funded. We're lucky that we grew that way, and we kind of fell into it and just worked at it. So.
Awesome. So we have about 3 minutes left, and you seem to have a lot of passion on the regulatory side. And I wonder, tell us what you're advocating for, whether it's at the state level, federal level. I think that's really interesting.
I'm advocating for small business. I don't ride one political party or the other. I stay out of all the spoon-fed talking points. I spend a lot of time discussing sales tax and the need for simple reform. It doesn't need to be complicated. Small business has enough burdens and enough hurdles. I don't need to collect and remit sales tax to 6,600 tax jurisdictions. I don't need to have the liability of one state a year that can audit me, which is how the last bill was written that didn't pass.
Right.
So I have concerns there. They're revising NAFTA or throwing it out, not real sure. There's a lot going on in trade right now, and I'm for and against a lot of it. A lot of it makes sense, and really it's gonna hurt in the short term. But the big thing right now for me is sales tax.
Yeah.
I understand it's coming. We're a tax-based system, and it's kind of been a loophole on the internet. They just have to be smart about it.
Okay.
And it's I've been back, like I said, on the Hill and in the White House, and dealt with Congresswoman
McMorris Rogers.
Yeah, locally quite a bit.
Yep.
She's come to a class we teach at the college on online sales, and I'm all over it. I'm very passionate about it, just to protect the little guy, so other people can do what we've done and have that opportunity.
So you and your wife teach at Spokane Community College or the Falls?
Correct. Yeah, we have through their Act 2 program. We outreach to a lot of rural communities that don't get the opportunity.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So that's been fun.
So if people are interested in learning more about this type of e-commerce and business, the class is.
We actually took this year off. We just had too much going on, and things are growing, and we asked the program if we could take off 2018, hoping to get back into 2019. And it is. They put it in their listing, and they put us in rural campuses, and it's fun, and it's cool, and it's a great opportunity for a lot of people to have an idea to at least show up. It's like $10.
Yeah.
It's subsidized.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a really nice give back for you.
Absolutely.
And thank you for doing that and sharing your
Yeah.
expertise.
Well, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. So thanks again for joining us at the Startup Spokane podcast. And thanks to our guest, Chris Hoke, for joining us and sharing with us your experience on e-commerce and talking a little bit about the regulatory challenges facing small business in our area. And we're hoping that you, our listeners, will join us again as we continue to share the story of entrepreneurship in the Inland Northwest.
Thank you.
Startup Spokane is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is a joint effort between GSI's Startup Spokane, Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Talks Online. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. We wish you a great and profitable day.